debriefing is a post-game session, for instance in the classroom, where players discuss the game, receive feedback and reflect on what they have learned from the game. Many schoolers claim that having a debriefing is key for effective learning from games. After the game, the debriefing is a special session to digest and consolidate the game experience, while assigning meaning and creating deeper insight and understanding. Debriefing is typically reflection on action, which is also a metacognitive exercise guiding players to evaluate their own learning. The positive thing about debriefing is that it really helps to improve the learning. However, it also seems to imply that games cannot do it by themselves but need a debriefing to become effective. Isn't that strange? The main reason for adding a debriefing is that games with a dynamic nature are likely to prompt players to act rather than think. Players have to make quick decisions, which leaves little room for thoughtful considerations. You are simply too busy to do deep cognitive processing and to develop deep insight and understanding. The problem with debriefing is that it is a post-practice session. Any feedback or new insights cannot be turned into action because the game is over. It's just too late. Why can't we start early? Why don't we take a break every now and then and do some intermediate reflection? Actually, we could. We could pause and interrupt the game from time to time to evaluate what we've been doing. This would allow players to process any feedback and directly put the new insights into renewed action in the game. It matches the ideas of David Kolb's experiential learning cycle, which deliberately links learning by doing with reflection in action rather than reflection on action. But unfortunately, in games we don't see many examples of reflection in action. Game designers generally prefer not to interrupt the game because that would break the player's game experience and state of flow. One may call it anxiety or an idle gossip, but it is nothing less than a conservative trait, which may be appropriate for leisure games, but it is certainly not for serious games. Why should we break up the debriefing and arrange intermediate thinking pauses? Because in serious games the learning is more important than the gameplay. We don't want people to have a good time playing the game without learning anything. We want people to learn even if it goes at the expense of fun. Second, breaking the flow is probably less harmful than people think. Players may be able to restore their flow state in 2 ticks after the interruption, so it shouldn't be a problem. Third, we should not overestimate flow theory. The idea of flow is quite fuzzy and flow cannot be measured dynamically, so practically we cannot really deal with it. Very likely, the arrangement of intermediate opportunities to think and reflect will lead to better learning. But if you are reluctant to interrupt your game, you may want to use a trick. Intermediate thinking breaks can also be incorporated as part of the game scenario. For instance, requiring the players to report their findings to some character in the game as part of the game scenario. Writing down things, even if only one line or a few keywords, is an act of reflection. Very different from clicking buttons. Debriefing is okay to support learning, but it is not enough because it simply comes too late for maximum benefit. We should incorporate opportunities for intermediate reflection and consolidation of experiences, either by radically interrupting the game or as part of the game scenario, allowing players to repeatedly think and reflect and reconsider how to proceed in the game.